and welcome to In Focus. And as tensions escalate in Gaza and along the Israeli-Lebanese border, the Middle East faces a critical moment. With Israeli airstrikes intensifying and political shifts underway, questions arise about the US-Israeli relations and the broader regional stability. Meanwhile, Donald Trump's declared victory in the US election prompts cautious reactions from the Kremlin, raising questions about the future of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. First, let's examine the latest. As the war in Gaza intensifies and tensions escalate along the Israel-Lebanon border, the Middle East faces a critical juncture. Israeli airstrikes continue in southern Lebanon while the political landscape shifts with new statements from the Palestinian leaders on US involvement. And as protests erupt within Israel, questions arise about the implications for regional stability and the future of US-Israeli relations. How will these developments shape the course of the ongoing The Guardian has reported that the US election result is a major victory for Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, who has long preferred a Trump presidency. However, the shift in US power dynamics may not entirely favor him. Despite the US warning Israel over humanitarian aid obstruction to Gaza, Trump's return limits American leverage, leaving Netanyahu free to advance his policies, including potential annexations in Gaza and the West Bank. While Trump strengthens Netanyahu's political position, it is unclear whether his administration will fully support Israel's military goals, especially regarding Iran. The US-Israeli relationship under Trump could be one-sided, with Israel benefiting from strong backing but also facing limits, especially on military escalations. The geopolitical landscape of the Middle East is evolving, with shifting alliances that may ultimately diminish the Palestinian cause in favor of a broader regional strategy. To help us better understand the future of the situation and updates on what is happening right now and the latest escalations in the Middle East, we're joined by Brigadier General Halal, a strategic expert from Beirut. Thank you, sir, for joining us. First, let's start off with Israel's airstrikes on southern Lebanon and rising violence in Gaza. Yes, Halal, yes. I apologize for that mistake. First, let's start off with the Israeli airstrikes on southern Lebanon and the rising violence in Gaza. What role can external powers like the US play when it comes to de-escalating the tensions right now, given there's a change in administration?
First of all, I'd like to send my greatest regards to Qnews and your audience. Thank you so much for having me. It's still not clear how things will go in the coming days, and how Israel will deal in the Middle East in the coming days with advent of the new administration or the new results of the elections, the U.S. elections. Despite the fact that there is still time, like 2-3 months until the president would be in office until the 20th of January.
Okay, so Palestinian leaders have expressed confidence in U.S. support under Trump's administration. How might Trump's policies shape the future of Palestinian rights and Israeli relations? Do you think there will be a shift in how the new administration will handle the situation right now?
Practically speaking, if we think about Trump's previous term of office, we see that he was supporting Israel all the time, as he has transferred the U.S. embassy to Jerusalem, and also he made legislations with regard to the settlement also in Julan, the occupied Julan, and he also made many operations that were called the normalization and the normalization between the Arab countries and Israel, with one aim is to cancel the Palestinian issue. I don't know what would be the case today with Trump and the new administration. He is one of the American U.S. presidents who are not untraditional president. He is some president that you cannot, nobody can predict how he is going to act and what are his decisions, because he usually takes sudden and surprising decisions, and he is trying to say that I'm here. He just wants to add his fingerprint. So the deep state is the state that takes everything, that makes the decisions. Of course, they sent the aircraft B-22, and they also supported the Israelis. That's why I think that there wouldn't be much change in the situation unless Trump wants to add something like some changes, and he wants to stop the war. And even if he stopped the war, this will not be in favor of the Arabs and Palestinians. I think he will go for the interest and the benefits of Netanyahu and the Israelis.
Sir, you talked about the idea that Trump in his decision making is quite unpredictable. But in general, like U.S. administrations, regardless of what line they toe, they still support Israel. And even Hamas has stated that its stance when it comes to the new U.S. administration depends on its approach to the Palestinian rights. Do you think that Trump's policies will have a long-term impact on Hamas's actions and regional stability in general, or that will continue to toe the line of, supporting the Israeli side unequivocally and not attempting to stop, the bloodshed right now in the Middle East?
I think Trump has said in his election campaign, that he thinks that the Israeli state area is small, and that he's going to look for ways to enlarge the area of Israel. So this statement or this sentence, if he's joking, he's talking seriously, then this is a disaster. I think that Trump will continue to support the Israelis, and the deep state will continue to support the Israelis. Will this affect Hamas or not? I think that Netanyahu has been for a long year, 13 months, he had committed genocide on the humanitarian level in Gaza,
ولم يستطع أن
and
يعني
nobody
يلغي
could
أو يسحق
cancel.
حماس.
But he
حماس
couldn't. He
فكرة أو
couldn't defeat
عقيدة
Hamas.
وبالتالي
Hamas is
هي
a
ليست
belief. They are.
هي ليست مكون
It's not
معنوي
just
يستطيع
one aspect that
العدو أن
he can
يسحقه مثلا. لذلك
eradicate
أقول
or
أن
eliminate.
ما سيقوم
This is why
به
I
ترامب
say that
لعله
whatever
هو
Trump is
إنهاء
going to do,
الحرب، لكن
perhaps he
لمصلحة
wants to
إسرائيل
end the war.
سيسعى أن
He
تكون
will
هناك
exert
مصلحة
efforts
للعدو
to
الإسرائيلي.
end the war, but
سيذهب
for the benefit
اتجاه
of the
الدول
Israelis.
العربية
But
لجعل الدول
he will go to
العربية
the Arab
هي
countries
التي
to make the Arab
يدفعها
countries
باتجاه الخلافات أكثر وأكثر
to
فيما
have
بينها
more
فيما بعضها.
conflicts among one
أنا لا
another.
أعتقد
Which
أن
kind of
I
الحلول
don't think
ستأتي
that
yes.
the
يعني عبر
solutions
الإدارة
would be
الأمريكية الجديدة،
through
عبر
the
حلول
new
سلام
administration. I don't
والسلام
think that peace
والحق العادل باتباع
and just
فلسطين وتعود
peace
فلسطين إلى
is
أهلها.
that Palestine
أنا لا
should be for the
أعتقد ذلك، لأن
Palestinians.
على
And I
الأقل
don't
أن
think that
ترامب
this is going to
والجمهوريين
be
لا يؤمنون
achieved
بحل
because Trump
الدولتين.
and the Republicans,
ولذا
they don't believe
يعني
in
إن
the two-state
كنا
solutions.
سنذهب
So
إلى
if we
فقط
want
ما
to
فعلته
go and
منظمة
see what
التحرير
was done
وبقيت
by
فيما هي عليه
the
اليوم، أي
Liberation
سلطة
Organization, and they have remained up
سلطة
till now
فلسطينية
in the
تعترف
power,
بالدولة
in power,
العبرية،
they
وبالتالي
do
الدولة
acknowledge
العبرية لا تعترف
the
إلا بالسلطة
Hebrew
الفلسطينية
state,
وليس
but
بالدولة
they do
الفلسطينية، رغم
not.
أن هناك
But the
العديد من
Jewish people,
الدول
they do not
الموجودين في
acknowledge
جمعية العامة للأمم
the
المتحدة قد
Palestinian state.
اعترفوا
And a lot
بالحقوق
of
الفلسطينية
countries
وبدولة
in the
فلسطين.
United Nations
لا
have
أعتقد،
acknowledged
والحقيقة
Palestine
حقيقة
and the
لن
right
أكون
of
كثيرا
independence.
متشائما،
I don't want to
لكن
be
ما
pessimistic,
يفعله
but what
الأمريكيون
the
يجعلنا
Americans are
متشائمين.
doing make us more pessimistic.
Well, sir, since you brought up the idea of Netanyahu in general and how they're happy, quite happy with Trump winning the presidency, but let's talk about what happened yesterday. Netanyahu yesterday dismissed the defense minister Yoav Gallant, and this triggered, internal opposition. But what do you think of the timing itself? It happened right in the U.S. elections, as the U.S. elections were happening. Do you think this was done on purpose, so that the U.S. administration right now is not, is too busy dealing with the U.S. elections and the outcome of the U.S. elections? And also, what implications does this dismissal have when it comes to the Israeli military strategy and maybe prolonging the war?
لا أبدا.
I think that Netanyahu
قام بإعلان هذا الموضوع
declared
وأعلن
this,
نيته
and he declared his
بتمديد
intention
منذ أكثر من
to,
شهرين ثلاثة.
for Gallant,
عندما
2 or 3
انسحب
months
بني
before
جنتس
this
وأيزنكوت
was
من
when
الحرب.
Benny Gannett and Einkelkot
لكنه
withdrew from the war, but he
بهذا
took
القرار
more time
لعدم
to
موافقة
take the
الإدارة
decision because
الديمقراطية
the
وبايدن
administration
تحديدا
and the
عن
Democrats did not
إقالة
agree with
جالنت.
his
جالنت هو
decision.
اليد الأمريكية
So
في
because
الحكومة
Gallant is the American
لكنه مع
arm in the
الانتخابات
administration, the
ومع
Israeli administration, but
تيقنه
he's
أن
with the
ترامب سيفوز
American
ومع تيقنه
elections,
أن
that he
إدارة
was sure
بايدن
that Trump is
راحلة
going to win
ذهب
and
إلى
that
مزامنة
Biden is
إقالة
leaving the
ترامب
office. That's
مع
why
خسارة الحزب الديمقراطي
he took this decision at this timing in
للانتخابات. وهذا
particular,
كان
and
الهدف،
this
هذا هدف
was
رئيسي من أهداف
one of the
نتنياهو
main
في إطالة أمد
aims
الحرب.
of
وكان
Netanyahu to
يستثمر في هذه
prolong the
الانتخابات
war.
وقد
He invested
استثمر
in these
جيدا في هذه
elections,
الانتخابات
and
من
he has
أجل ترامب.
invested a
وهو
lot for Trump.
يعني
And
ذهب
he
بعد أن قام
also
ما قام
went,
به في
after
غزة،
what he has
ذهب
done in
باتجاه
Gaza, he went
تغيير طبيعة
to
الاشتباك في
change
المنطقة من أجل تمديد
the
مدة
conflict in the
وأمد
region
الحرب.
in order to
ذهب إلى
prolong the
إيران
time of the war. He
وقتل
went to
الرسالة
Iran
هنية.
and he has
ذهب إلى
assassinated
لبنان
Haniyeh, and he
وغير
also
طبيعة
went to
الاشتباك مع
Lebanon,
حزب الله
and
من
he changed his
عملية
policy with
إسناد
Hezbollah.
وقواعد
And
اشتباك إلى خطأ الخطوط
these
الحمراء
different
واغتال في
conflicts,
حينها
he
فؤاد يعقوب.
assassinated a number
إن طبيعة
of
الاشتباك التي ذهب يبحث عنها
important figures.
هي التي
So
تحدد
Netanyahu has changed his
عمليا
policy, and this what
فكرة
shapes
نتنياهو
his
بالذهاب
idea
باتجاه
of
أن تكون
going
هذه
to the
الحكومة
idea
كاملة
that this
هي حكومة
government
يمينية.
should be
فبإدخاله
rightist
جون
government. That's why he selected Yehun
ووزير
Sa'ar
دفاع
and
جديد،
the new
يعني وزير الحرب
defense
الجديد.
minister and the
على
new war
الأكيد ومن
minister. This
المؤكد
is
أن
certainly
اليمين أصبح
now
صافيا فيها،
the
وبالتالي
rightist representative in the government are
قام
now
بالموازنة ما
prevailing.
بين
Yeah.
الإحصاءات
So he
الشعبية
had
التي
made,
تنادي
he started to go
بالتعصب
for more
والعنصرية
rightist people, and not to find, not to leave any opposition in his government. So as if he is trying to stop the Americans from any participation in his government.
Okay, so sir, do you think that the new administration will encourage this idea that you were just saying about Netanyahu going for a more, right-wing government and therefore expanding the war or maybe prolonging the war?
So I think, I expect that the war will be prolonged, and Netanyahu currently will, because starting from the election date today of Trump and the winning of Trump, and we have seen today, I think that he's going to expand the war in the region, and especially that Trump will not be a president now until the official coronation in the 20th of January 2025. So during this period of time, this transitional period of time where we are waiting for the new government, I think that he will exploit the situation, but I think that he thinks, as he thought before, that he could achieve military achievements on the ground. But all the achievements that he claims to say that he has taken, but they do not change in the strategic part aspect of the battle. Because up till now, he could not free the hostages. He couldn't eradicate Hamas. Up till today, he couldn't destroy Hezbollah. Up till today, he couldn't put an end to the resistance in Lebanon. And up till now, he couldn't achieve any of his aims. And what's the most important than this, that he had targets on his ground invasion on Lebanon to bring back Al Jalil settlement to, but up till now, he couldn't achieve any of these aims. Many Israelis left the settlements Tel Tabariya, Haifa, and now it is now under fire. There are millions of the settlers. They stay in the refugees camps, and there are more than a lot in the northern part of Palestine. They cannot live in their settlements, and they are on a long distance till Marj Ben Amir in Haifa.
That was Brigadier General Halali, strategic expert from Beirut. Thank you so much for your insights, and thank you for joining us here on Qnews. We move on to the Kremlin that reacted cautiously after Donald Trump declared victory in the U.S. presidential election, with the conflict between Russia and Ukraine expected to be affected by Trump's presidency in light of his campaign statement and his relations with the Russian President Vladimir Putin during his previous presidency period. The U.S. News and World Report newspaper highlighted the Russian reaction to Trump's victory with a special focus on Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov, who has said relations with the United States are at a historic low. But the Kremlin was open to dialogue and would see what happens when Donald Trump returns to the White House in January. Peskov described the U.S. as an unfriendly country that is directly and indirectly involved in a war against their state, stressing that what happens next will depend on the U.S. leadership. He added that Trump had made tough statements during the election campaign. He also stated that Russia would watch to see if he changed his tone when preparing to enter the Oval Office. He also pointed out that Russia will carefully analyze and monitor everything and will draw conclusions based on specific words and steps. Joining us from Moscow to analyze the scene in the Russian-Ukraine war after Trump's victory is Asif Mulhim, director of the GSM Research Center. Thank you, sir, for joining us. Firstly, let's start off by asking, what are your expectations, your personal opinion, for the future of the Russian-Ukraine conflict following a Trump victory?
Good evening, everybody. I think that nothing will change in Russia-Ukraine war after the winning of Trump. I think that the idea is not about Trump alone or Russia alone or Ukraine. So that's why to say that Trump will be able to stop this war, this is something that is not that is illogical. When he says this during his campaign, this is something, but when he goes to the office, he wouldn't be able. When he says so, he's sending a message to the Americans and to the American institutions who agreed to support this war, as if he's saying that your support for this war was illegal, and this would hold them accountable in court and before the American people. The second point is that the United States of America is also benefiting from this war. Even the Republican Party, there are a lot of lobbies who also go for the industrial institution. The third point is that there are many lobbies that support the fuel sector, the energy sector, and one of the most important results of this war is to get Russia outside the market, the energy market, and that's why the United States is trying to make up for the Europeans by the liquid gas. And Trump in 2018, he has imposed sanctions in order to get Russia outside the market. And also in 2017, he also participated in the Three Seas initiative in order, and at that time, this was in Warsaw Forum in order to sell the liquid gas. Another point is that the Republicans themselves, among them, who are some people are more interested in this war more than the Democrats. They have a certain point of view, and there is a trend in the Republicans to say, some of them say that we want to befriend Russia in order to do better results. I think the landscape is really complicated, but with regard to the question whether he's going to stop the war or not, this is difficult.
Sir, I'm sorry if I'm going to have to cut you off there, but right now we have some live footage of protests in Israel when it comes to the hostages, the families of the detainees, rather, there in Israel, who have protested, are out to protest Netanyahu due to his dismissal of the defense minister, Yoav Gallant. They're out, and as you can see, the number of people there are quite large, protesting, and there's a lot of internal issues right now within Israel. Well, unfortunately, we're out of time, so I would like to thank my guest right now for this segment. That was Asif Mulhim, Director of the GSM Research Center, joining us from Moscow. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for watching. That wraps up our episode for today on In Focus. So remember to stay updated by following Q News on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok at Q News EGY for the latest developments. Thank you for watching. I'm Raham Morsi.